Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to today's Friday Reflections on this Friday, the 27th of February 2026. I hope you are well wherever you're tuning into this from. And today we're going to continue our study of life and leadership lessons from Surah al-Kahf, based on this book by Professor Hassan Mohi-ud-Din Qadri. We are going to look through the verses one by one now, from 100 to 109. We're at the very end of the chapter now, so we've only got a little bit left that we're going to be studying. So maybe there'll be two or three more of these, I think, and then we'll move on to another book. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Verse 100. And on that day we shall present the hellfire fully exposed to the disbelievers. This verse paints a terrifying scene. Hell is not just described, it is presented, laid bare before the disbelievers. It reflects divine justice in its most direct form. No veils, no intermediaries, just truth and consequence. The confrontation symbolizes the ultimate reality that awaited denial. For leaders, this verse emphasizes the consequences of denial, negligence, and moral blindness. When the truth is laid bare, leaders who dismiss ethical principles will face outcomes that cannot be negotiated or ignored. This is a reminder that every hidden decision eventually becomes visible, and accountability is unavoidable. Of course, this is one of those lessons that applies to every aspect of our lives. And whatever we do, whether we do something in a religious sphere, a political sphere, a corporate sphere, an academic sphere, we all make decisions. And when we're making those decisions, especially when those decisions are affecting our organization, our business, other people, we have to make those decisions with seriousness and responsibility and do the best we can to implement whatever we've decided. Verse 101. Those whose eyes were covered from my remembrance and could not hear. This verse identifies the root cause of their downfall: spiritual blindness and deafness. Their faculties were functional, but their hearts were shut off. They were not receiving divine guidance. The deliberate refusal to engage with Allah's remembrance led to their ruin. Leadership requires clarity of vision and active listening, especially to moral and spiritual truths. Leaders who ignore ethical counsel or dismiss the reminders offered by conscience, mentors, or revelation ultimately lead themselves and others towards destruction. Ignoring the warning signs is not just negligence, it's self-sabotage. Active listening forms part of so many successful outcomes, and when it's not present, it leads to so many problems. How many people listen like, yeah, okay, whatever. I think we've all done it when we're busy, but that's when we miss things. We could miss things which are important and which, if we acted upon, maybe the person is suffering, maybe the person's going through some personal issues or has some other problems in their life and they need a bit of support. Oh, yes, sure, no problem. Whether that person is a friend, a parent, a child, student, actively listening and ensuring that we're understanding what they're saying as best we can and taking that on board. This helps us to make better decisions. Equally, when we're sitting in a boardroom or some of the meeting with other participants, actively listening to everyone around the table, because everyone's got something unique they can contribute. That helps us to make good decisions as a board or a whatever kind of meeting it is. So is really, really vital, and yet it's one of those things that so many people do not do. Verse 102. Do the disbelievers suppose they may take my servants as their guardians besides me? Indeed, we have prepared hell as a reception for the disbelievers. This verse rebukes those who replace divine authority with worldly protectors, idols, or ideologies. Trust placed in anything other than Allah is misplaced, and such false dependencies lead to hell. Pre- Prepared not as punishment alone, but as the inevitable outcome of misplaced loyalty. See, this is not talking about normal trust between like friends and the trust that you'd place in a teacher or a lecturer or your doctor, but it is ultimate trust. That ultimate trust belongs only to Allah. And even when we're under a teacher or a doctor or as believers, yes, we should trust them, but we should ultimately trust that Allah is going to help us or heal us or educate us or benefit us through them. And whether those people happen to be Muslims or not themselves is not the point, because everyone is Allah's servants, whether they're conscious of that or not. But if we put ultimate trust in something that Allah has created and think that that has power of its own, separate from Allah's, then we don't understand the divine order of things, and we don't understand our deen. And if we make decisions like that based on the wrong understanding, then that leads to consequences. In leadership, misplaced trust in unethical allies, corrupted systems, or ego-driven systems can lead to ruin. A leader's true support must be rooted in integrity, principle, and divine accountability. And notice those two things, integrity and principle, are based upon the person's character. Each of us has to watch our own character and check that we are cultivating integrity and ask ourselves what our principles are. And are our principles based on the Quran, on the Sunnah, on what are universally understood to be good things? Or are our principles based on something else? And interestingly, when it comes to integrity and principle, you don't find too much difference between how these are understood in any of the great spiritual traditions of this world, or even philosophical traditions. There are some differences, but not huge ones. The principles are there. Verse 103. Say, shall we inform you about the biggest losers in respect to their deeds? This verse introduces a shocking category, those who think they are succeeding, yet they are the greatest losers in the hereafter. The question is rhetorical but piercing, meant to awaken self-examination in every soul. This verse offers a vital lesson for leadership. Appearances can deceive. Leaders may build successful ventures, garner praise, and feel invincible. Yet, if their actions lack ethical substance, they may be building empires on sand. Self delusion is the most dangerous failure. Verse 104. They, i.e., the losers that were mentioned in the previous ayah, are those whose efforts in this world are misguided, while they think they are doing good work. An interesting point on that. Those whose efforts in this world are misguided, while they think they are doing great work. Even Adolf Hitler, he thought he was doing great work. Yet what did his great work ultimately? He thought he was doing the best thing for the German people. Yet ultimately, what did his great work accomplish? Aside from whatever happened after he passed and whatever happened to his soul, even in this world, his great work ultimately led to utter ruination of Germany and the deaths of countless millions of people, but he thought he was doing great work. Otherwise, he wouldn't have embarked on it. The most evil people in this world, they think they are doing good work. And this is what the Quran is referring to here, that these people are the biggest losers. As the Sheikh's commentary says, the tragedy deepens. These individuals weren't idle, they were active, striving, but their efforts were misaligned with truth. Sincerity alone is not enough. Direction matters. Good intentions must be anchored in divine guidance, or at least in good principles, and the right kind of guidance. Leaders may be highly active, innovative, energetic, yet still fail if their efforts are misaligned with core values. Strategic misdirection, even with good intentions, can harm people and organizations. This verse teaches that successful leadership demands both drive and direction. And another thing, there are other people that have come out of, we see a number of cases within Christianity and Islam, but also within other religious traditions, where people even think that they are doing divine work, and yet their good work, their divine work that they think they're doing, ends up resulting in the suffering and deaths of countless people. All they had to do was take a simple step back and ask, is this really what Allah wants of me? Or is this really what God or Christ wants of me? Surely God does not require this. God does not want us killing people. God does not want, us to take on board actions that cause immense suffering to people. Religion is supposed to make the world a better place, not a worse one. Verse 105. They are the ones who disbelieve in the signs of their Lord and the meeting with him, so their deeds have come to nothing. On the day of resurrection, we shall not give them any weight. Disbelief in divine signs and the afterlife renders even seemingly good deeds void. Without faith and recognition of divine authority, actions lose their spiritual worth. The weightless nature of such deeds reflects their disconnection from eternal purposes of life. Leaders who operate without ethical anchoring may appear successful in metrics, but their contributions hold no enduring value. Ethical leadership ensures that decisions are meaningful in both immediate and long-term contexts. When detached from accountability, even grand achievements become hollow. Verse 106. That is their recompense, hell, for they disbelieved and took my revelations and messages in mockery. Mockery of revelation and messengers isn't mere disbelief, it's active disrespect and ridicule. So, the Sheikh here is making a clear distinction. It's one thing to not accept the Quran as the word of God. It's one thing not to accept the Prophet as a messenger of God. And in this day and age, if you look at how Islam is often presented, what many people think Islam is, what many people think that Allah requires of us, or the Prophet Muhammad, because they've heard from extremists, or they've heard from crazy people, or Islamophobes. Of course, if they've heard these things, if that's their impression, maybe they'll want to stay away from Islam. And yet, funnily enough, in some of these cases, I've met people who are like that, who actually live quite, in some ways, Islamic lives, because some of them don't drink, they don't smoke, they live healthy lives, they believe in God, and yet they wouldn't regard themselves as Muslims because of what they think Islam is. So there are reasons why people might disbelieve, or there are reasons why people might keep away from Islam, especially in these times. But even in the time of the Prophet, there were those that they spread propaganda about him, and spread propaganda about Islam and Muslims. Such people have always been around. And if you think that that's true, you might stay away from Islam. So the Sheikh here is making a very clear distinction between mere disbelief and disrespect and ridicule. It's quite one thing to not to believe, quite another thing to actively go on the attack, actively criticizing Muslims, actively, you know, disgracing the name of the Prophet, or or burning Qurans and things like this. This is more than disbelief. Now, if we encounter such people as Muslims, that doesn't mean that we should lower our standards, that we should behave disrespectfully towards them, because that only reinforces what they're doing. That reinforces their impression of what they think of as Muslims. So we have to handle these situations with wisdom. Unfortunately, some Muslims don't, and that makes things worse. But at the same time, in terms of how these people are before God, this is really bad when people actively disrespect, actively ridicule, and burn Qurans and things like that. But that's bad for their souls more than anything else. And if we are genuine Muslims, we should be trying to reach out to them and help them to understand what Islam really is. Islam is a path of love and mercy, compassion, kindness. It's not a path that wants to create destruction or trouble. But the Sheikh points out that this disrespect and ridicule, this arrogance severs the soul from mercy. Hell becomes not just a punishment, but a reflection of the contempt they harbored for the divine truth. So you see, this toxicity which they're giving out is a reflection of the problems that they have within themselves. A normal, healthy person, whether they are from a Muslim background, whether they're Christian, whether they're Jewish, whether they are Zoroastrian, whatever, a normal, healthy person with a healthy mind doesn't go out there and burn the Quran or ridicule the Prophet Muhammad, or do this. They either have some kind of respect because they've heard something good about Islam or read something from the Quran, even though they have their own beliefs, or they don't like because of things that they've heard or they disagree with. But usually they don't go out there vehemently on the attack. This symbolizes something internally that's not quite right with a person when they do that. And so the Sheikh here is saying that the hell is not just a punishment for them, but it's actually a reflection of their internal reality. When leaders mock values, dismiss ethical counsel, or belittle those calling for justice, they fester toxic cultures and eventually collapse under the weight of their own hubris. Respect for foundational truths is essential to enduring leadership. Mockery may win applause, but it invites downfall tomorrow. Verse 107. Indeed, those who believe and perform righteous deeds shall have gardens of paradise as their reception and hospitality. The narrative now shifts to the believers, those who harmonized faith and action. Their reward is paradise, not as a transaction, but as a divine reception, a warm welcome. It reflects Allah's hospitality for his loyal servants. For values driven leaders, this verse is a vision of what ethical leadership earns: respect, legacy, and eternal reward. Leading with sincerity and service ensures not just success here, but honor in the life to come. True leadership is greeted, not feared. Verse 108. Abiding in them forever, from where they will never wish to move. This verse describes the ultimate fulfillment, paradise that brings such peace and satisfaction that the soul desires no change. This is the reward of alignment with divine will, contentment without boredom, permanence without stagnation. This verse reflects the idea of sustainable success. Great leadership doesn't just achieve temporary goals, it builds systems, cultures, and legacies that people cherish and don't want to leave. Visionary leadership builds paradises of trust, growth, and well being within teams and societies. Now, this is the point. It's like, obviously, we all want to go to paradise in the Akhirah. But if we actually follow these principles of justice, of respect, of decency, respecting and cherishing everyone around us, we actually start to build mini paradises here on this earth. Islam doesn't forbid that. Islam actually inspires us to build that. Just like the Prophet, peace be upon him, built a new Medina. Medina was warring, it was catastrophe, it was tribes killing each other. The Prophet, peace be upon him, went there and built a new Medina. He built a little paradise there. And that spread out, the impact of that spread out. And it caused people all across the Middle East to embrace Islam and beyond. Conclusion. In these verses of Surah al-Kahf, the Quran uncovers the stark contrast between deluded success and genuine righteousness. Those intoxicated by power, praise, performance, but disconnected from divine truth, end up with weightless deeds and regretful hearts. Meanwhile, those who believe, act with integrity, and live with accountability are honored with eternal reward. For leaders, this section is a masterclass in visionary humility to evaluate not just what is done, but why and for whom. It reminds us that the only leadership that endures is one rooted in truth, sincerity, and a clear awareness of the day when every soul will meet its true reflection. Verse 109. Say, if the ocean were ink for the words of my Lord, the ocean would surely run dry before the words of my Lord are finished. Even if we brought another like it to help. I mean, this is one of the most beautiful verses in the Quran. Say, if the ocean were ink for the words of my Lord, the ocean would surely run dry before the words of my Lord are finished, even if we brought another one to help. Allah's wisdom is endless and infinite. And I will read a bit about this reflection of the Shaykh afterwards, the infinite wisdom of Allah, reflecting on that in the next Friday reflections. I think that's 1, 2. We've probably got about 3 or 4 of these left, and I'll finish the book. Thank you for joining us again. If you're interested in the book, this is the book, Life and Leadership Lessons from Surah al-Kahf by Professor Dr. Hassan Mohi-ud-Din Qadri. And this book was published last year. It's hot off the press. It should be easy enough to get hold of, either from Minhaj Books or probably it's also on Amazon as well. If you find these podcasts and my other content useful, please like and subscribe, and feel free to share these videos and my content to other people and to your networks who you think may be interested or it may be beneficial for them. If you find it beneficial, if you find it helpful, please subscribe to my channels and also subscribe to my Buy Me a Coffee link. The more people who do that, the more that I'll be able to focus on producing great content. And anyone who supports that also gets a share of the blessing of what I'm doing, because not everyone has the time or the ability to do these sort of podcasts or content. If you don't, then support someone who is, and you get the blessing of doing so as well. So may Allah reward you, may Allah bless you all. I wish you all a very good evening, and may Allah accept all of our fasts and prayers during this holy month of Ramadan. And until next time, have a great weekend. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of God be with you all.